Hi there, my name is Russ Laga, and you are on the Big Agent Meeting. It is 11 o'clock on Friday, and what that means is we are going to be bringing value to you like we do every single Friday. Today, we've got a cool show lined up for you. Got a quick promo from Ian Wheatley with KGCI Radio. Then we're going to kick over to Holly Mabry. Holly Mabry's going to be talking about what's going on right now. I don't know if you guys have seen what's been going on, but EXP is in a little bit of spicy stuff, trying to lead the way and lead the market in the thought process on clear cooperation. Our stance is we want to make sure all the sellers always have a choice to do what they need to do, and we need to make sure we're taking the best care of them. And the best way to do that is by having open, clear cooperation where everybody can see every property that's on the market instead of turning it into a rich guy's Easter egg hunt. So with that said, we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing and we're on the right side and making sure our customers and consumers are taken care of and they're told the truth. So we're going to be walking into that. Holly's going to be talking about that with you guys in detail and some forms that come along with that. I'm super excited to watch her have that conversation. And then we're going to kick it over to Brian Ellington for Winning Client segment, talking about how do you guys put more business in your business. So with that said, here we go. We're going to kick it off. I always kick it off on Fridays with a market minute. Today, I wanted to hit you guys with something really interesting that I saw this morning, which is why I want to make sure you guys saw this. Starter home prices over the last 7 years up on average plus 87%. So when you look at going back to 2017, the price of a starter home in 2017 was $157,000. As you move forward, it goes 174, 191, 207, 223, and boom, look at that jump. 20 to 21. Going into 22, 269,000 is a massive jump in 1 year. And then another big jump, 30,000 plus in 1 year. So this is, guys, why we're talking about understanding where the market is, because we're at 293 now is the average starter home in the US. Now, there are some areas that are a little lower. There are some areas that are quite a bit higher than that. But on average, that's what you're looking at for a starter home. So when people are saying, Ross, you don't understand, it's really hard to buy a house these days. Yeah, I do understand because I've seen these numbers and I understand this math. So now, knowing that, we need to make sure that we are communicating clearly with our potential clients and clearly with our spheres of influence exactly what's going on in the market, why it's going on. The good news is you see this flattening out a little bit up in the top. It is starting to flatten out a little bit. And there are a couple of pockets around the country, as we talked about last week, that are actually seeing inventories climb. Like Fort Lauderdale, I'll be there in 2 weeks. Their inventories climb. They're about eight months supply of homes now, which means their house prices will probably soften and or flatten out or go down a little bit. So with that being said, we are still at a low supply of homes at 3.5 months supply of homes. Last number I saw was national number for February, 3.5 months supply of homes, which was up from 3.0 months supply of homes last year at the same time. So while it has gone up a little bit, it hasn't gone up a bunch of it. Right? So again, remember, you're going to need to be jumping north of that 5 and 6 to be able to get into a market that's softening and starting to shift towards a buyer's market. So here's the rub, guys. We've got buyers that have been like, I'm waiting for the market for the prices to go back down. Well, the bummer is if you've been waiting since 2017, you just lost a couple $100,000. If you've been waiting just in the last 3 years, you've lost $30,000, right? So how many more years do you want to wait if you're going to lose 10 grand a year? So as you're going through this conversation, you show them what's been going on, help them make a good decision based on facts, based on knowledge, and you start to sound like an expert. You're talking numbers like this, people think you sound like an expert. They're going to want to pay you like an expert. Keep in mind, technology is changing fast, but people still want to have somebody they know, like, and trust that'll help them make the best decision for them. So there you go. I hope you guys can put that in your business for the 18th of April. All right, so there you go. All right, so next up, real quick, I've got a slide here I'm going to pop up. Regional rallies. I don't know about you guys, but if you have not seen a regional rally or signed up for one, we have 19 locations for regional rallies starting and firing up on April 28th. As you look at this slide here, you've got 19 different places in the country that you can show up and attend a regional rally. A couple reasons you want to show up for a regional rally. Number one, it's important you feel connected. It's important that you feel like you're part of something. It's important that you hang around with people that are like-minded, driving in the same direction. When markets are weird and things are up and down, you got to work together. When you feel like you're part of something, you feel like you're part of a community, it makes it a lot easier to withstand some of the frustrations and stresses of markets that are all over the place. For you guys getting whiplash watching the stock market over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, Those are the type of things that breed fear in an industry. And we want to make sure we're connecting with each other and making sure you know you are not alone out there. Also, you're going to be able to grab something out of a regional rally to put in your business to take your business to the next level. So with that said, make sure you sign up now, RSVP. There's a QR code where you can RSVP, jump into one of those regional rallies. I'm going to be at 5 of them. I'm going to be at Portland. I'm going to be at, well, Montana, which is not regional rally, but it's a rally in Montana. I'm going to be at Detroit. I'm going to be at Fort Lauderdale, and I'm going to be at Philadelphia. If you are at any of those, make sure if you see me, you find me and you hug me, because I could always use more hugs in my life. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys at regional rallies. All right, next up, quick update, KGCI Radio. Ian Wheatley, take it away.
Hey there, thanks for checking into the Big Agent Meeting, streaming right here on KGCI Real Estate On Air. So Rory McIlroy's won the Masters. It was an absolute roller coaster with double bogeys, miracle shots, clutch putts, and that full emotional buffet that you expect from a Sunday at Augusta. And honestly, it felt a lot like watching real estate agents on social media. There's one week you post a reel, gets 10,000 views. Then the next week, you're absolutely ghosted by that algorithm and you're considering to yourself posting baking videos instead of real estate ones on social. Does that sound too familiar? Well, Tina Beliveau has shared her strategy on Real Estate On Air Live, and here's the wild part. She's built a $15 million business just by showing up consistently on her Facebook profile. No gimmicks, no chasing any trends, just being real and telling stories and staying in front of people that already know, like, and trust her. So here's the move, assuming that you're sick and tired of riding the social media roller coaster. Head on over to Real Estate On Air Live or scan the QR code right over here. After the Big Agent Meeting, we'll be revisiting Tuesday's episode of Real Estate On Air Live and then rolling into 6 straight hours dedicated to building social media that wins clients in a way that allows you to attract clients instead of chasing customers. It's actionable strategies you'll only find on KGCI Real Estate On Air.
All right, there you go. KGCI every week telling you what's coming up next. Make sure you grab that off of Spotify like I do and listen to it. I think they have it even on iHeartRadio if I'm not mistaken. So there you go. Next up, we have the one and only Holly Mabry. She's been getting into some interesting things last week and this week. Holly, I love the fact that you're leading from the front. You're doing an amazing job. I appreciate you. We appreciate you. So take it away, Holly.
Well, it's been a big week here at EXP, and we've had lots of different announcements. And if you missed it earlier this week, Leo and I had the opportunity to do a 20-minute, just very brief overview of what we see coming and our support of the Clear Cooperation Policy. But as we continue to roll out new forms and make sure you've got everything you need for your clients, we want to make sure that you've got the details. So let's get into it. Let's talk about Zillow, the National Association of Realtors, and what you can expect next. And first and foremost, let's talk about Zillow and Redfin. What I appreciate is both of those companies have said they're going to follow the NAR Clear Cooperation Policy. They are honoring it, but most importantly, coming in May, they will start to look at any listings that are not put into the MLS and then also not sent out through IDX. They're just not going to put those onto their website later in the feed or later in that listing journey. Now, what's important about this is we're seeing folks or other competitors that are listing their properties, but they're not sharing with anybody. They're keeping it in a closed circuit. You have to go to their website exclusively to getting any kind of access. Well, what that does is it eliminates buyer choice from actually using whatever agent they are most comfortable with. It's forcing them down a narrow path. Also, for sellers, they're not getting the exposure they deserve. What we're seeing recently out of a Bright MLS survey is that properties that start off this way end up spending about 37 days on the market when the mean was actually closer to 20. So what do our agreements with Zillow and also how we go forward with Redfin mean to you? Well, EXP is not exclusive. As we look at partnering with all the different portals, we want to make sure that our clients have access to market their property to the broadest audience possible. So we're working this deal not just with Zillow, not with just Redfin, but we'd be open with homes.com, also realtor.com, any of the other big portals in the United States. Now, our business model is really key in this because we're not shoving sellers into one location. We sit with them, we learn from them, and we give them advice on the choices that they have. By educating the consumers and telling them the facts, the truth about what it looks like in listing their property, it makes all the difference. And there's been a lot of confusion around what is an office exclusive and what is going on the MLS. When we look at the clear cooperation policy, we've been with it since 2020. And what I love about it is it does provide for those sellers who need some privacy. Now, this is the thing with office exclusives. You have the ability to do this. We see very few sellers needing to go down this path, but it could happen. As a result, sellers who are not ready for MLS, maybe they are a federal judge, maybe they are in law enforcement. I had a lot of enforcement that I worked with during my career that were undercover. We didn't put them on the MLS. Okay, this listing's not shared outside the brokerage. There's no sign, there's no public marketing. Those are the key pieces. See, Zillow doesn't have a problem if you're following clear cooperation in this manner. What they do have a problem with is if you're keeping an office exclusive, but putting a sign in the yard and publicly advertising it on a website that everybody has to call you. That's not fair. So we want to be really clear that sellers can absolutely choose to have this kind of privacy with eXp. And you as a listing agent, you can sit down with the seller, talk about what this means, but it also could be more days on market. Now, this is the other cool thing. With the clear cooperation policy, we have this thing called coming soon. Every MLS has implemented this differently. Some MLSs, coming soon is 7 days, enough to maybe get the carpets cleaned and maybe paint a bedroom. In other MLSs, it could be as long as 30 days. What's important here is this is specific to the market that you work in. And as eXp being national in almost every MLS in the country, we want to make sure that we are adapting to what the rules are locally. So we're going to follow those always. So if you're in Northwest MLS up in Washington State, we abide by those rules, just as we do in Canopy or in Bright MLS, or even in the Arizona Regional in Phoenix. So all of those things come into play. Again, Zillow doesn't have a problem if we're following the clear cooperation policy. And that's what's important to us here is we've always followed it, we always abide by it, and we give the seller choice and also educate. Now, NAR back in March, they came out with this new status. And I want to be really clear here, this delayed marketing, the key around it is, hey, you're still going in MLS. You're not going out on the IDX feeds to all the big portals. Well, why is that a big deal? Well, the biggest eyeballs are in Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, Homes.com. So that opportunity for exposure for your seller, why wouldn't you go to the largest audience possible? This was an interesting call by NAR, and it's not our cup of tea. When we're sitting with the seller, delaying from public marketing makes no sense. If you're going into the MLS, utilize coming soon and then put it on the portals where it makes sense. And that's where we are going as far as an office policy. So when we look at how we're going to go forward and how to empower you as you sit with your sellers, it's full access with their control. And what we mean by that is we're going to disclose at every step of the way what they can expect, what they can look forward to, and what sites they're going to be on. So as a result, we created this form. And oh, by the way, this was required with the new status that NAR created and also part of Clear Cooperation. That was part of the March update. This form is now available on eXp Realty and actually exptoolkit.com/sellers. It will be in SkySlope very shortly. We're really fighting to have this done for you by end of week. What's important about this form is it's a required disclosure. We wanted to make sure it was out there. And quite frankly, it's a really good idea. Hey, sellers, if you're not going to the widest market possible, you may leave some money on the table. We actually saw a Zillow report that came out earlier this year, $1 billion. $1 billion was left on the table by sellers over the last 2 years by not exposing their house to the widest market possible. That's pretty incredible. When you look at a market like California, it was even higher as far as not just $5,000 per deal, but as much as $30,000. And that's a really big margin. But also think about it. If you're in the lower price range, not exposing your property to the widest market possible, you make less, and you may not get the terms and conditions. So it's not just about price, it could be timing and other factors. So this form is going to be available to you as our agents. We're making it available industry-wide that anybody can utilize it. What's important here, and I want you to be super comfortable with, is we're not requiring it. We're going to strongly suggest it because by September 30th of this year, it is going to be one of those things we're going to see required for anybody who does not go full marketing. And this is what's so important. So we're going to be ahead of the game. You're going to have better conversations. So let's talk about when you would use it and why you should have it in your file. Okay. We're going to update the SkySlope checklist. You're going to have it for listings or on the purchase and sale. So whenever it works best. So if you're putting a property in coming soon and you get an offer, that happens. Maybe the neighbor has been spying, watching all the people paint and do all of these things, and they come over with a bucket of money. No problem. Have the seller sign this form if they want to just sell to their neighbor. That's not a problem. Also, if you're on EXP Access, yes, we've got EXP Access. Sometimes our sellers need that privacy. We'll go ahead and have them sign that. Also, maybe the seller has already found their buyer and they're hiring you to assist them through the process. This is another opportunity. You'd have the form signed, and just so they're aware, maybe they love that buyer and they just want to sell their house to them. That's great. We're not going to stand in the way, but we are going to make you aware. And finally, if you're working with cash investors, we do see circumstances where people are like, nope, get me out of here. I need to move on with my life. I've got a health issue. I've got a family issue, whatever it might be. Okay, cash investor comes along. You make the transaction happen because that's what the seller wants, but we're disclosing up front. Now, you can have this signed at time of listing. That's totally your call. Or when you're presenting the offer and the seller goes, yeah, that makes sense for me. I want to take that offer. These are two options. Again, this is not going to be a required form, but we want to strongly encourage you to leverage it to have better conversations. This is a very comfortable form to walk through with sellers so they understand, like, hey, they may have more time on the market. Hey, they may be missing out on other buyers and they may not get their terms and conditions. So it's really important that you get comfortable in having these conversations. It's funny, about a year ago, you and I were having the same conversation with our single property buyer broker. At the time, we were trying to figure out the NAR settlement and everything that was going on. What was so great about that time frame and us working together is we were able to be better prepared going through the summer before the changes occurred in August. Y'all, it's the same time, same tune, and a different form. We're just being prepared for what we know is coming. And that's the great news about all of this. So again, these are industry resources we are happy to share with anybody. Please share this with anybody you know, either in our company or maybe at another brand that may not have the resources. That's okay. We want to share with everyone. So exptoolkit.com/seller. It's got all of our forms on it. It's got all the other toolkits as well as trainings, and then other resources that you might tap into. Everything from, gosh, what's going on in the market, who's weighed in on the Zillow move, which has been the CFA, the Consumer Federation of America, as well as, the Zillow release, and also what you can expect coming next. That is a living site, and we're constantly updating it for you. If you have any questions, of course, we're always here to help. Please reach out to your state broker team, or I'm just a phone call away on Workplace. Thanks, guys.
All right, there you go. Holly Mabry, thank you for everything you're doing with EXP. I know being the tip of the spear is challenging sometimes because they stab stuff with you and you're at the front of that, and sometimes it hurts when you're doing it. But we appreciate you being out in front and fighting the good fight to make sure we're doing the right thing by our agents, by doing the right thing by agents in other companies, and by doing the right thing by consumers across the board. So thank you for everything you're doing on that. All right, so with that, next up, real quick, we've got a 5-minute segment talking about Build-A-Sign. If you guys don't know what Build-A-Sign is somebody we work with consistently at EXP, and they're going to show you guys what they're all about and what they have for you that you can put in your business now. Build-A-Sign, take it away.
Hi, everyone. It is your favorite Build-A-Signer, Alex Hackney here with Jen Hall. She is one of my favorite EXP agents coming to us from Denver, Colorado. If you want to introduce yourself, Jen.
Hey guys, realtor here in Denver, and I love Alex. I've worked with her several times at Build a Sign, so just here to
Oh,
give you the details.
I'm blushing, Jen. Thank you so much. I know we've known each other for a few years now. You've been such a
Mhm.
loyal customer of ours. And yeah, I'd like to just kind of start things off with hearing from you on what you love from Build a Sign and kind of what keeps you coming back after all this time.
Yeah, so when I first became a realtor, obviously it was, figuring out signage is like the hardest part, you think, when you're becoming a realtor. You forget about clients, you start focusing on things like that. But so figuring out signs, and I kept running into like I would order signs and I would expect them to look a certain way and then they wouldn't. I actually have a really funny story of a sign I ordered where my picture got shrunk down to this really small circle in the center of the sign,
Oh gosh.
and from like a different sign developer. And in the end, if you any of you are on any of those like public forums for realtors on Facebook, I posted it there because I had multiple people call me and say I looked naked in my photo with the way that it cropped it. And so anyway, it was a really funny story. And every once in a while I pull that sign out when I get to the bare bones of what I have left in signage. But
Yeah.
I still to this day get calls about that sign like, oh my gosh, ma'am, did you know? And so thankfully, Build a Sign saved the day, and I no longer have that problem.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, I'm so happy we could step in, but also like what a way to get people to call you still.
Yeah,
Like,
right?
what a different marketing tactic, I guess. But yeah, I know that you and I, we had worked on getting your customized signs done as well, with
Mhm,
your cute little open house sign in the back too, which we'll
mhm,
talk about here in a second. But yeah, we did a lot of just making sure everything was perfect for you and making sure it was to your brand and how you wanted it styled so people could recognize you out in the world.
mhm.
And to kind of feed on that, I know you also got folders ordered from us because many people don't know that we're not just signs here at Build a Sign. We do all sorts of print marketing. We do your business cards, folders
Yep.
as well, which we customize those. But then, of course, signs, which again, that open house sign in the back displaying, which I know you've had good success with. So, another thing I wanted to kind of go over with you is what tips do you have besides putting your gorgeous photo on there, naked or not, to get attention? But what kind of other tips could you provide or success stories that you even have from really honing in and finding your marketing and your brand presence and putting that on signage and folders and print material that's helped you and your business grow? I'd love to hear that from you.
Yeah. So when I first met with you guys, I'd only been with EXP for a few months at that point. I think it was at maybe the last shareholder summit that we had, but I didn't really have like a brand for myself yet. I had recently switched over from a different brokerage and was trying to kind of navigate what I wanted it to look like here. I also had only lived in the Denver metro for 2 years at that point, and so I still hadn't kind of honed in my little niche. But anyway, so I sat down with you guys and I was like, okay, this is the headshot I have. I have no idea what I want, and I actually didn't even like my headshot, so which is sad. It's a super cute headshot. There, you know how you're so critical of yourself.
Of
But
course.
Alex and Kara, of course, were so fantastic, and they were like, "No, your photo is amazing. It's gonna look so great. Here's some
Yes.
recommendations." And I feel like I really kind of fell into like accidentally a really awesome sign, and it really wasn't because of me. It was just because of like advice that you guys gave me as we were building it. And the funny thing about that is, fast forward, I just had this client move here from New Jersey. He's a United pilot, sold his house in New Jersey, and he texted me one day. I love them, they're some of my favorite people. But he said, hey, our realtor out here has this really fancy sign that has her picture on it. Do you have signs like that? And I was like, I absolutely do. So I sent him a picture of mine, and he sent me a picture of hers, and he was like, yours is better.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
even my clients recognize the difference. And part of what I
I love
love
it.
about having like the signs the way that I do is the biggest thing in real estate is name recognition and face recognition. When people see me, I've actually multiple times had people come up to me and been like, "Oh, I follow you on social media," or "Oh, I," and it's because of things like this that
Yeah.
people are able to like connect me to the person on the sign.
Yeah, yeah, that's such a good point. And speaking into that too, just like the recognition of things and even following you on social media, you utilize QR codes on your signs, which I think
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
can be such a smart idea. Have you found
Mhm.
success just personally with having the QR
Yeah.
codes on your signs? Yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
I actually just had a listing appointment last week. I listed a house, and a few days later, I got a phone call, and it was, a lot of agents spend a ton of money on postcards to neighbors and stuff like that, and certainly there's value in that. But how easy is it for the neighbor to be walking past my sign, see my QR code, scan it, and give me a call? And that's
Yeah.
exactly what she did. So,
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing. It's always so good to connect with you. And thank you so much for sharing such kind words about us here at Build a
yeah, of
Sign.
course.
No, I really appreciate it. And to all the lovely EXP agents out there, please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you need help with customization like Jen. We're here to make sure all your signage needs and print material is perfect. So you can find us on exp.buildasign.com, and we are here to help. Thank you again, Jen.
Thanks, Alex.
All right, there you go. Build a Sign, one of our solutions at EXP. Make sure you grab what you need from there and start using Build a Sign because they do an amazing job for us. That's why we have a partnership with them. All right, so next up, we have Brian Ellington with the university update, and then he's going to kick it straight over to Nikki Miller, and they're going to have a conversation about how to put some stuff in your business that you can actually get more home sales done with this year. Take it away, Brian Ellington.
All right. Thanks, Rustin. Good morning to you. And good morning to you all. I read something the other day that I wanted to share with you, and it's from Kiera Cass. She wrote, "People who give the best advice often have the deepest scars." That's very true for me in my life and the people who I've learned from. And rather than going out and getting those scars yourself, I'd invite you to come be part of some of the training next week from the university, learn from people who have deep scars so that you don't have to get some of your own. Starting on Monday with our friend James Brown, 11:30 a.m. on Level Up. James is the team leader of the Magnus team and the founder of Real Home Solutions. He's also an author of Hybrid Real Estate Investing. He's going to be sharing proven strategies for how to help unqualified buyers achieve homeownership through rent-to-own programs. Then on Tuesday, my friend Renee Rodriguez, best-selling author of Amplify Your Influence, he's doing Amplify EXP, a great program that he's been doing now 4 times a week. He comes on and helps EXP agents with their sales skills, with their influence. This time around, next Tuesday, he's going to have Brian Galke on his show. And this is going to be a good one. It's on reading faces. And as a salesperson, this is a skill you absolutely have to master. So do come be part of that. By the way, this is through Renee's program through Elevate Coaching. So if you're not signed up for that, you can go to elevatecoaching.com and find out more about that program. But that's Tuesday at 2 p.m. So hurry and do that. On Thursday, our good friend Leo Pareja, CEO of eXp Realty, is going to be doing our eXp Executive Masterclass. Every Thursday, we have a different executive. All of us have been real estate agents. And so Leo is going to come on and share about his experience in attraction. He's sharing the 4 pillars of attraction. That's a really good one. Those of you looking to grow your revenue share, do be part of that. Next week, the same time, the same channel, Big Agent Meeting, we got my friend Joe Turco, who's going to come on and share his open house system with you, soup to nuts. It's a great conversation he and I had, so I'm really looking forward to that. And then speaking of great conversations, Chris Knighton is the team leader in eXp Canada. He's going to be talking about launching his team and how he grew it up to 150 million in sales. That's a really great conversation. I hope you'll tune in. That's EXPU Lab dropping today at 3 p.m. Eastern on this channel on eXp Realty on YouTube. So do check that out. But today, my special guest is Nikki Miller. If you're not familiar, Nikki was not only a top agent, a top broker, she's also now CEO of Lever by Movoto, great program where they help agents work their database. And we wanted to talk about sphere of influence and database building as an agent. And I thought, well, who's got a bigger, badder, great database, more so than Nikki? So we had her come on and share some of her secrets for helping agents build their database. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Nikki Miller. For those not familiar with you, do you want to give a brief introduction of you and your pathway to where you are today?
Yeah. How far back do we go, Brian?
Start with getting into real estate. Where'd you come from before real estate?
I always sort of say I grew up in real estate, but my life before that, I got lucky and found what I loved early. I started when I was 22. But immediately before that, I got by a stroke of luck, when I was really young, when I was in college, I got to be a sideline reporter for the NFL, which, by the way, is the best training that anybody could ever go through. Like, I wish that everybody got to go through the training that I got to go through doing that for a number of different reasons. But it was the coolest job that I knew I didn't want to do for the rest of my life. A really cool experience that I knew I didn't want to do forever. And so I got to be a sideline reporter for an NFL team for 3 seasons, and then decided I didn't want to do it forever. So I went to the library one day. I always have such a vivid memory when I tell this story, Brian. I went to the library one day and I was very clear. As a sideline reporter, the job sounds really cool, but you also don't make any money. Like, you're making basically below minimum wage when you factor in the travel and when you're early in the game, when you're doing all your own hair and makeup and clothes and all of those things. And so I said, no, I don't love it enough to do that for nothing effectually. So I said, well, what do I actually want to do with my life? And I said, I want to be in control of my own destiny. That's really what it was. And when I looked up, I thought to myself, well, what does that actually mean? And when you're young, part of that means making enough money to have the freedom to be able to do that. So I said, okay, I want to build wealth. And so I went to the library one day and I pulled down a bunch of biographies of a bunch of people who had built a lot of wealth. And guess what? The one thing that they all had in common was, Brian?
Real estate. Yes.
Real estate. And so I thought, I can do that. And so I double majored. I was majoring in communications. I ended up double majoring in that and finance. And right out of school, I went to work as an underwriter for a real estate investment and development firm. That's where I started in my career. Okay. And at the time, I graduated college early, so I was about 20 years old. So I was the youngest person on my team by far, and it was a small firm, which was exciting because I got to be exposed to a lot of different things. And the entire way that you make money in development is really by becoming a partner. And so I had the big ambition that even at this young age that I was going to become a partner within a year. And so I was, no exaggeration, working 100-hour weeks and showing up for every meeting at all hours of the day, exposing myself to every project, every experience, underwriting every deal that came through, whether it was mine to underwrite or not, just so I could learn enough. And on day 366 of being at this company, I got my goal. They offered me partnership. And I came home that night, and I was dating, at the time, my now husband. And I got home that night and he said, I have really big, exciting news. And I was like, me too, you go first. And he says, I just found out I got a huge promotion and I'm moving to Northern California. And I lived in Southern California at the time. And I was like, I just got really big news that I got offered partnership. And we just both sort of looked at each other and thought, well, what are we going to do? We knew that we wanted to stay together. And it was basically, hey, you go this route or I go that route. And so I decided that we decided together we were going to move to Northern California. So my heart broke a little because I had worked so hard for this, and I had to come in the next day and say, I'm not going to be able to say yes to this big goal that I had, and I'm going to move over here. And when I got to Northern California, I said, well, what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do now? I knew I loved real estate. I knew I wanted to control my own destiny. I really didn't want to start in development again. And so I thought, well, I want to invest in real estate. What's the best way to get to know a market? I guess I'll get into real estate sales. And that's what I did. And so I started at the ripe age of 22 in a brand new city where I didn't know anybody, and obviously a business where I didn't know much of anything. And like I said, just got really lucky, Brian, that I found what I loved early. But it wasn't an easy go for me in a very high price point area as a young person with no contacts. And candidly, when I started, a lot of people didn't expect much of me because they all didn't think that somebody who didn't have any contacts like I did, or was my age, would be able to break into a market. And I didn't have a Cinderella story. I was not rookie of the year. I did not come out of the gates and kill it. But what I did do was is I worked really hard. I was always willing to do the work. It's been a theme that's followed me through my career, Brian. And when you are willing to do the work, you also learn a lot along the way if you're smart. And so I did the work. That year, I door knocked 356 days out of 365. I literally only sold one transaction my first year in real estate, but I door knocked almost every single day. And guess what happened in my second year? Well, I became very successful. I was the #1 individual agent in the office. And then everybody started to tell me that the next thing I needed to do was to build a team. And I remember at the time, Brian, thinking to myself, I really don't want to do that. Like, I'm 23 years old. I'm barely responsible for myself. I really don't feel like I should be responsible for anybody else. And I didn't love the idea of taking on a bunch of overhead and being responsible for other people. And so I remember talking to my manager one day, and she said, well, that's the famous words I've heard so many times in real estate. That's the way you do it. That's the way it's always been done. And I said, I really, that doesn't feel authentic to me. I really don't want to do that. Is there another thing is there another way for me to get the support that I need other than hiring and building out this team? And she said, well, if you don't want to build it yourself, I guess then you could join a team. And by the way, this is over a decade ago now. So teams were still in their early iterations. Teams were really just like a bunch of people connected by one person's credit card. They were not what they are and can be today. They were still learning. And so I looked out around in the market I was in at the teams that were sort of starting and figuring it out. And I said, no, I don't really want to do that either. And I said, well, if I don't want to build it myself and I don't want to join a team, what are my options? She smiled at me and she said, then you just stay where you are. And as someone who is a very hard worker and very growth oriented, I thought to myself, that's a slow death. I can't just stay where I am. So truth be told, Brian, I kind of fought success for a while because the only option I felt like I had was to build a team, but that never felt right to me. I really never wanted to do that. And so I failed forward through that for a while until eventually I took a position as the CEO of what at the time was the largest real estate brokerage in California. And when I got there, I realized that this challenge that I had had as an individual agent wasn't unique to me. In fact, every individual agent that would come in for coaching and to converse with me was really in the same position that I was, which was they really didn't want to build it out themselves. And they didn't want to join a team. And if they didn't do either of those things, they were left with, well, then I guess you just stay where you are. And on the other side, as a brokerage leader, I felt for them as someone who had been in their position not too long ago. But on the other side, as a brokerage leader, that became one of my biggest challenges, right? That was like my biggest revolving door, the biggest time challenge I had, the people that required the most support. And so I looked up one day and just said, why are we fighting this group of people and why are we fighting success so hard? There's got to be a better way. Like somebody has got to offer this group of people a better way. And I'll never forget, Brian, I was sitting in a mastermind with brokerage leaders with a group of, I'll call them the powers that be in real estate at the time. And I said, we were talking about this group of people, this group of individual agents who everybody was frankly having challenges with. And I said what at the time felt like the most obvious but stupid question. And we were all trying to figure out how to better support them. I said, has anybody just asked? Like, has anybody just asked them what they're looking for or what they need? And I'll never forget, Brian, this guy leans across the table and he looks at me and he goes, Nikki, if Ford had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. And I leaned back over and I said, but they would have said faster. See, we don't know how to articulate that which we haven't seen before. They wouldn't have asked for cars because they never saw them, but they would have said faster. And so in other words, what people are willing to articulate to you is what solves their problem and what would make their life better, but they can't always tell you the vehicle through which they want to get it. That is for you to figure out as the person who's willing or who is looking for the answer. And so agents were saying, why can't we have all the economies of scale, all the support, all the benefits, all the infrastructure of having a team around us, but we don't want to build it ourselves and take on the overhead and complexity, but we also don't want to have a joint team. Why can't we have that? And the industry just kept saying, no, that's not possible. That's not possible. You can't have all of that. And I said to myself, why not? Why can't we give that to them? And I realized that we can't hope to solve the same problems that we've had with the same thinking that created them. And we kept thinking that it was either this path or this path for individual agents. And I finally looked up and said, there's another path. We just have to figure out how to be able to give it to them. And so I created a comprehensive support system exclusively and specifically designed for individual real estate agents. And the big differentiator for what we do is that I always tell individual agents, there's tons of tools out there that you can use yourself, but having a good set of tools doesn't actually solve the problem that needs solving because it's still up to you to use them, to figure them out, to do them. What individuals actually needed was a comprehensive support system to do the things for them they need to be done in the business so that they can focus on what matters most and so that they can scale effectively, as if they had a team around them or as if they had joined a team without having to take on the risk of overhead, which most agents never want to do, and without having to give up their brand in the process. And so we created a do-it-for-you model, a comprehensive support system for the entire business, where we support them in what I call the big five: coaching and training, database management, marketing, transaction management, and supplemental lead generation. I launched that company in January of 2021. Had a lot of people told me I was crazy, that it was the wrong market, that it was the wrong group of people, that it was a bad business model, that it wasn't a good idea, that people who innovate in real estate don't look like me, which at the time is an under 30 self-funded female. I was certainly not of the majority trying to create waves in real estate. And it turns out that it was that people just hadn't asked the right question and really listened to the answer, because it turns out that's exactly what a lot of individual agents needed. And we grew that. And in March of 2024, Ojo and Mavoto came to me and said, well, what would it look like for us to launch this together, for us to give you more direct access to this group of leads, wherein we know our biggest challenge is that we want people who can convert these at a higher level, who will actually follow up, who have the support that they need in order to do that. And why don't we join forces in order to go help even more individual agents across the country and across different business models? And that's exactly what we did. So I sold it to them in March of 2024. And since then, we've grown substantially and are continuing to help more and more individual agents achieve astronomical growth in their business. And that brings us to today. How'd I do, Brian?
Great. That is great. And what an amazing story too. And so you and I were talking, because we have a partnership with you now, right? For real estate agents who need the kind of support that you're talking about, don't want to start a team, don't want to join a team, they can still get that. And so we're delighted to be in partnership with you. You and I were talking though, and what struck me is you kind of are a large team to a certain degree, right? Because what you do for agents is help them with their database. One of the things you do for agents is help them with their database. A lot of other things that you provide as well. And so we were talking about this lead generation project, and I thought, well, okay, this is somebody who obviously works at a large scale through databases, probably has a lot of wisdom to share with real estate agents. So I'm curious, from a database sphere of influence perspective, there's probably a lot to this question. What is it that you see that agents are so challenged by, and what's the right solution for them? What should they be doing? And some will, some won't, and the ones that won't may come to you. But start there. What is it that we need to learn from your experience and what you guys have put together?
Yeah, this is a great question. And you're right that this is a multifaceted answer, and I'm sure we'll get a little bit more granular as we go. But I would say the broadest thing that I could name, Brian, is so many people are looking for the perfect plan, and they will pontificate on the best touches to send out and the best database to use and the best approach to it, all the while never actually doing it. And so the biggest challenge that I see for a lot of individual agents is that they spend so much time trying to come up with the perfect plan that they never actually execute on anything. And I always tell people, you find the right path forward by implementing the imperfect plan. And so my best advice to any individual agent, whether they were to join us or try to do it on their own, you have to begin. You cannot find a better path forward until you begin. I always tell people, effort sets your floor, strategy sets your ceiling. Yes, there's probably a better strategy for you to go about converting your database. And I'm happy to talk specifically about that here. But until you begin, it doesn't matter. You can have the best strategy in the world, but if you don't implement it, nothing is going to happen. You're not going to get anything about your database and get anything out of your database. And I hear people all the time, give me some version of I'm getting ready to get ready, right? Like, oh, I plan this year to perfect my database, or this is the year, Brian, I'm on my 10th year in real estate, but this is the year I'm going to get that database in order. I'm like, no, you're not. If you haven't done it yet, you just aren't going to do it. So the number one question I get asked, especially because we manage so many databases, we have 50 different databases that we'll support. But so many people are like, which one of those is the best one? I'm like, the one you use. That's it. I don't care if it's a spreadsheet. I don't care which database it is. Like, the one you use is the best one so long as you will use it. Sure, once you start using it, there are some that I like better than others that I think create more opportunity than others, several which, EXP is in partnership with. But like, the one you use is the best one. And until you can master that, I can't hope to give you a better strategy.
Yeah, I would say hit the ceiling of limitations of whatever database software, then come ask that question. And
Yes.
until you do, Lofty, Chime, and KV Core and Thub, if you're a team, all of those are great databases. Just use one.
Yeah. They will do everything you need them to do.
Yeah, it's funny you say this. So I was just talking to a top agent who's friend and was chastising this top agent who shall remain nameless because they are amazing. I mean, they are doing like double-digit millions in volume annually for years and years and years. No database.
Oh.
And would readily admit it to me. I'm probably leaving millions in GCI on the table, and I'm like, no, you're not leaving millions. You're leaving tens of millions in GCI on the table, and also making your life harder because you're constantly in the hunt, the treadmill of lead generation, as opposed to working a database.
Yes, Brian, that's it. That's what I tell individual agents. I'm like, the reason this feels like such a grind for you is because because you don't implement any system that allows it for it to be easier for you. That's the biggest mistake that I see, is that most agents are working so much harder than they need to be if they were to just get their database in order.
So I'm curious because I wonder if there's an easy way to do that. Like, for a lot of agents, the thought process as to why, or maybe the excuse as to why they haven't built their database yet, is because I got to sit down, I got to clear my schedule, and I really got to like focus, right? First, I'm going to have to do all the research and the legwork of figuring out which database to use. Okay, we just talked about that. But is there an easy way that you found to teach agents about how to just go about building that database while you're in the chaos that is being a real estate agent, a successful one?
Yeah, the tons of ways, but I'll give you sort of my top two strategies that I were to give to anybody inside or outside of our organization who's an individual trying to go about, not only because you said building, which is very important. And by the way, some people say like, oh, I'm in the process of building my database, to which I'll say, well, welcome to real estate. You will continue being in the process of building your database until you choose to stop doing real estate. That is always the job. You should never look at that database and say, I'm going to put the football down on this thing. I'm done. You're just not. You never are. Anybody who you meet with a pulse and an email or a phone number needs to go into that database. Every single person. So that's the first thing. It's everybody you come across, whether it's on your social media or you meet them at the grocery store or you met them actively prospecting, i.e. open houses or door knocking or whatever your chosen lead generation lever is. You need to get those people into your database because you will forget about them. You absolutely will. It's not if, it's when. And I always tell people you have to approach every day in your business as if it was day one. This is Jeff Bezos' principle. But if you read his shareholder letters, he's got this great concept that I love called this day one mentality, which is basically, in short, you approach your business as if it were day one every day. Well, what did you do in your real estate business on day one as it pertains to your database? Anybody who you knew ever in your life, you put them in your database. You were like, I'm going to get everybody in there. And by the way, there was only like 45 of them. And then every time you did anything prospect related, you would get them into your database because you just didn't have that many. But as we go faster and as we get busier, we tend to get lazier or less consistent as it pertains to that database. You can't do that. That is the most important thing that you could do so that you continuously follow up with everybody in there. And then you said something else, Brian, which I hear a lot, which is people are like, well, I got to get it cleaned up or I just got to spend one day getting in front of everybody and seeing where they are. I'm like, you're never going to do that. By the way, like, good luck finding a day. You said it earlier, like, I've got 4 kids, I've got a big job, like, everybody has life. You're never going to find that one day. If you haven't found it yet, you're not going to find it. So here's what you can do. You can put out touches that I tell our agents all the time. We use a tagging system that relates to different types of communication, but none of the communication that we put out is so egregious that somebody would get it and say, Brian, how dare you send this to me? And that's never going to happen in your database if you send out the right touches. You can send out really gentle touches that are just question-based or inquiry-based or interest-based. that invite people to start a conversation with you. And no matter whether you talked to them last week or 10 years ago, are perfectly appropriate for the person who's on the other side. So you don't need to get it perfect. By the way, you won't get it perfect. We support hundreds of databases nationwide and have a lot of experience, and I still don't think we've perfected it. We're always learning based off what we learn and the feedback that we get. So just start communicating with it in a way that gets people to respond, and you will learn as you go. And then make sure that you do that on a specific cadence moving forward.
What is the delta? So full information, okay. But why would one convert at 6% or better and one convert at 1%?
The agent. That's almost always what it is. It's almost always the agent. In other words, we can only do so much. And I always laugh. Like, one of the things that our agents constantly ask for is, can you just get an ISA to call my database? To which I'll say no, because then they are building the relationship with us, not with you. That is the point. The point is for them to build the relationship with you, not with your call team, not with your VA, not with your AI, like with you, the human being. No matter how much we want to avoid it, this is a human business wherein we like to work and interact with other humans. So you need to give them a human connection. It can't all be digital. Yes, that helps. It is designed to create conversations with you. But Brian, it is maddening to me how many examples I could give you of agents who we've sent out touches and they've gotten 100 email responses. And they'll come back to me and they'll mad, like truly angry at me and say, Nikki, I got 100 emails from people today, all wanting to talk to me. I'm like, yes, that's great. It's working. And they're actually mad about it. And they don't follow up or don't answer their questions or don't respond. And I'm like, oh no. Right? So much of it has to do, does the agent do their part? Do they answer the phone when it rings? Do they pick up the phone when they should? Do they respond to the emails or the texts when they get it? And if they can't do that, oh, Brian, there's not much I can do.
Yeah, there's not much I can do either. Here you are, a massive database owner, and you built that one bit at a time, but also too, you built your systems one bit at a time. For somebody who's either an experienced agent, and by the way, this is really aimed at experienced agents, not new agents. My experience is, and I was just telling my team this the other day, is when we're writing this training, you have to write not to the newbie who doesn't know what you're talking about. They all know this. They know this. They just don't do it. And part of that is overcoming their head trash. And part of it is getting them to actually, start, right? Any final thoughts from you about whatever we didn't talk about in terms of building a database that an agent at that level, capper, icon level agent, really needs to kind of understand in order to be successful at this?
Just begin. Like, you have to begin. For you to build a better system, you have to start. For you to understand how to make it work better, you have to start. For you to understand which touches work the best for your particular database, you have to start. And if you say that you want to get 15 transactions out of your database, build the right math in order for you to get it. So for example, if you have 10 people in your database and you're thinking you're going to get 15 transactions out of that, you're not. You're absolutely not going to do that. You would need to have at least 1,500 people in your database that you are communicating with regularly. And by the way, if you say to me, I can't possibly think of 37 things to say a year or 30 or 40 things to say a year, great. Start with 12 a year. Start with one a month. Do something. Anything that you do will be better than you not following up at all. It's okay if it's not perfect. By the way, I always tell people, like, we all think we know best. Otherwise, we would be fools to be doing it any differently. So just because you aren't doing it right now doesn't mean that you don't know what to do. Just try and see how your database responds. That's how we've built every great touch that we have. We put out A/B testing of touches or communication that we thought would get great responses or we thought would work, and then we see what happens. And then we make it better as we know better. And that is what you have to do on the scale of your business as well. So just begin, start communicating with people. And remember, if you don't know what to send, pick up the phone and ask. People might say faster horses, but you need to hear faster, i.e., I want to know more about what's going on in the market. Great. When you say that, Brian, does that mean that you want to know more about prices of your home? Do you want to know more about how mortgage rates are trending? And start a conversation with the person who's on the other side so that you can not only understand where they are right now, but also what they would like to see moving forward. And that will answer what you need to be sending out to your database.
Love that. All right, Nikki Miller, thank you so much for doing this for us. We really appreciate it. We hope that a lot of our agents can take advantage of the systems that you built there at Lever and really build their business. How can they get a hold of you?
Lever.momodo.com/exp. That's our home for all of our EXP friends. You'll get to hear more about what we do, inquire. You can find me on Instagram, Nikki Miller, and I respond to everything that comes through so we can stay connected there. And Nikki at leverbymomodo.com. I'm here to help this amazing group of people, and I hope that this was valuable. Thank you, Brian, so much for having me.
Thank you for doing this. We really appreciate it.
All right, Brian, Nikki, thank you very much for that. I got a couple notes here I'm writing down myself to make sure some of the things I want to make sure I'm sticking into my mind and keeping in my business for the near future. So thank you very much for that. We do truly appreciate it. So there you go, guys. Big agent meeting on Friday, April 18th. That's all we have for the show today. But before we go, we've got the NPS survey. If you could grab this QR code and let us know how we're doing. We're kind of playing with the format a little bit to see if we can find a recipe that works good for you, works good for us. So make sure you give us some feedback. Let us know how we're doing. If it's good, bad, or indifferent, let us know. If you love the show today, you got something you put in your business, make sure you give us a good score. We always appreciate that and the feedback. So thank you very much for that. So there you go. That's the show for today. Stay tuned. Coming up next for iConversations. See you next week.